I think a business owner should not be doing anything that they aren't qualified to do.
Like what? Like what do you mean by that?
So like, let's say you start a photography business, right? That's your trade. That's your skill, is your shots, right? Eventually one day you might want to build that out, get some other people in your studio, you know, so you're going to have to go out and make connections, make, you know, relationships that are going to lead you to get more clientele, get those strategic partners. You can't do that if you got your nose to the grindstone every day trying to figure out your own marketing, figure out all these things that you didn't go to school for that. Like, you're probably not going to do as good of a job at that as someone else who that's their job.
Yeah.
They run a marketing business, so let them do that work, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's like someplace a lot of people get hung up is it's like, it's my baby, no one else is going to care as much as I am, so I'm just going to do it all. But man, that's like just like the fast track to burnout.
Okay, gotcha.
Welcome to the Business Owner Spotlight by Audate Media. In this interview show, you will learn how to succeed through other people's stories, challenges that they overcame, and how they are winning in this new economy. You'll learn what to do in your business, what not to do in your business, and how others are succeeding. Tune in every week to discover new stories, new businesses, and new ideas.
All right, my man Adam on the Business Owner Spotlight, man.
Yes,
Thank you so
sir.
much for coming on,
Yeah,
being on a
man.
part of the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, man, let's talk about showing up, right?
Yeah.
Well, like when I say the opportunities in the show up,
Yeah,
you know, that's one of my quotes, the opportunities in the show up.
absolutely.
And number one, you show up physically, right? You show up physically in space and you show up powerfully.
Yeah,
I
man.
met you at an event a couple weeks ago, man. Tell us about that from your point of view.
Man, so I travel a lot, and I had a mutual friend of ours, Christoph, hit me up, asked me if I wanted to be a part of this ultimate speaker competition. I've done some public speaking. I don't do a ton, but I've known Christoph a long time, and he was like, "Hey, man, I only got a couple seats left. Like, do you want to get in on this thing?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Sure, let's do it." Totally last minute. Like, I think he hit me up maybe like 3 days before the event. So yeah, man. I mean, I knew I wanted to go in and share some of what I do.
What was the reasoning, like you even, so I met Adam at an event, the Ultimate Speaker competition, right?
Yep.
And when we met there, you know, you kind of share with me what you're doing in your business. You run a virtual assistant agency, essentially.
Yes.
And what was your intent of going to the Ultimate Speaker competition?
So, man, I mean, what you say is really true. Like, the show up is important.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much more value in looking someone in the face, talking to them, making that first connection. We always learn that growing up, right? First impression is everything.
Yeah.
So for me, I always maximize my opportunities to go to places like that. Even if it's something, like I said, like it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, but I'm kind of a yes man that way. So
Yeah.
I was like, let's do it. Let's go for it. So, you know, I wanted to show up, I wanted to make some connections, and that's why I'm here today.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, so now in your virtual assistant agency, you share with me like, hey, you're growing what does that look like, your virtual assistant agency?
So yeah, virtual assistants is what we started out doing. We got into the business, initially just started on like focusing on real estate agents.
Who's we?
Oh, so I have a business partner.
Okay.
Her name is Dana. She's unfortunately very ill right now. Otherwise, I totally would have brought her with me. But
Okay.
maybe next time.
Okay.
But yeah, so I started the company before I brought her on board. But ultimately, you know, I'm a firm believer of just having a team, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be the one to try to do it all myself.
Right.
It's not worth it to me. My goal in starting a business was to be the owner, not create a job for myself.
But where do you even get that mindset? Because I think a lot of people come into working in a business and they say, I'm the technician. Like, I got to do this. I got to do that.
Yeah.
I got to do that.
Yeah.
Well, where do you get that mindset of saying, hey, you know what? I want to be an owner and own something versus be a worker?
So, like, I watched my parents build a business at a pretty young age, and I saw all the hard work and everything that they put into it. I mean, they really did the grind day to day, like starting out. They had 4 kids. They were both in, you know, we were pretty like blue collar growing up. We didn't really have a lot, but they knew they wanted to do their, you know, like achieve their vision.
Yeah.
And they had a good one. They've been in business 16 years. They're still going. And so I saw them create a lifestyle for themselves, and I was like, that's it right there. Like, they're not millionaires, but they don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So then, like, I tried to start a few of my own businesses. The last one I was in, I just burned myself out. I got hung up on the grind, and I was too focused on that and not thinking about the big picture. I made a lot of mistakes because I was like down in the trenches every day. I wasn't looking out ahead of myself as much as I should have been. So like,
so what's like? Bring me tactical. Like, what does that look like? Because in theory, it sounds cool. Like,
Yeah.
I was down on the ground, but I hear Gary Vee and I hear this person and that person. You gotta grind. You gotta hustle. Shit, I got it on my on my wall right here.
Yeah.
So it's all about grinding. But then you're saying no, it's not about grinding. You gotta look out. So what does it tactically look like?
so I think it's important to work hard, but I think that you have to work smart, not just hard, right? Like you're going to be focusing on building a business. If you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you're not probably going to have only one stream of income. You have to have, like, time is your most precious commodity.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way. I burned myself out trying to do everything myself all the time. So I kind of took a step back and, like, I understand these guys like Gary Vee that say you have to grind, but I think that the part of the message that gets left out is, like, you have to grind on the important things. You can't just do everything. Like, yes, it's your business. Yes, you have to make sure everything is getting done.
So what's something
properly.
that like a business owner shouldn't do?
I think a business owner should not be doing anything that they aren't qualified to do.
Like what? Like what do you mean by that?
So, like, let's say you start a photography business, right? That's your trade. That's your skill, is your shots, right? Eventually, one day, you might want to build that out, get some other people in your studio, you know? So you're going to have to go out and make connections, make, you know, relationships that are going to lead you to get more clientele, get those strategic partners. You can't do that if you got your nose to the grindstone every day trying to figure out your own marketing, figure out all these things that you didn't go to school for that. Like, you're probably not going to do as good of a job at that as someone else who that's their job.
Yeah.
They run a marketing business, so let them do that work, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's like someplace a lot of people get hung up is it's like, it's my baby, no one else is going to care as much as I am, so I'm just going to do it all. But man, that's like just like the fast track to burnout.
Okay, gotcha.
At least in my experience.
Gotcha. So you're saying, like, for example, like the marketing, let it be done by the professionals. If you're running a photography business, be just a photographer.
Yeah.
Do your trade.
I think that's a big part of it. And then I also think that, you know, from there, like, as soon as you can, hire out your biggest weaknesses, right? I am not the most type A person, right?
What's the type A?
Type A is in, like, having, like, all my stuff on calendars. Like, my girlfriend is a good example of that. Like, she knows what she's doing 3 weeks in advance to the fucking minute. You know what I mean? Like, she's got everything laid out in all these calendars. I unfortunately that does not come to me naturally. I know I need to do it, but, like, if I rely on just myself to get it done, as opposed to maybe having, like, an executive assistant, it's gonna get done with the executive assistant.
Gotcha.
So as soon as I was able to afford it, I hired out that weakness.
Gotcha.
So I think that that's probably the biggest thing is as soon as you can afford to hire out your weaknesses, because then that's going to free up your time to be able to, like, look around you, focus on the big picture, which as the thought leader in your business, that's your job.
So is that what, you know, inspires you to create your business?
Yeah, so I mean, what inspired me ultimately is I have a lot of passions. Like, there's just a lot of things that I care a lot about. I went to school for political sciences.
Okay.
It's not what I'm practicing right now. But one day I do want to have, like, an NGO, have, you know, something that can actually help make the world a better place. I believe that that's a big part of, you know, if you're going to be a leader in your community, whether it's a business leader or whatever, you should definitely be focused on making the place you live or the world that you inhabit
Improve it?
a better place.
Okay.
Absolutely. So how can you do that? I think that's by having more freedom, more time. Unfortunately, yes, in the 9 to 5, you could go and you could volunteer your time, and great, God bless you if that's what you want to do. But I want to do a lot. Like, there's a lot of things I care about.
So what does that have to do with essentially working with virtual assistants?
So coming back to it, I mean, delegation, I think, is like a superpower.
Gotcha.
And so I was like, well, why don't I start a business where I focus on that? That's how it started, helping people be more effective at what they do by, you know, getting their head out of the trenches, focused on the big picture. If you're doing something in your business that is taking up all your time, like, look at your 80-20, you know, Pareto principle. What is it? What are the things that are hanging you up every week? Hire that out. Get that off your plate as soon as you can.
But it's not easy. I think some people, it sounds easy, right? And I understand it now, but it's not necessarily easy. Like, how do you even get it out of your head? Like, things that needs to be done from a business owner standpoint. How do you get that out of your head of, hey, you know, I gotta call people, or I gotta send the emails, or I gotta manage my inbox? Like, how do you get to a point where you delegated enough that you now have a company running on its own?
So I think that the first part is understanding, why am I doing this, right? Why do I have this business? What's important to me?
Okay.
I think if you start with that, Simon Sinek, right? Start with why. Have you read that?
Yeah.
It's a great book, and I think it holds a lot of value because if you understand what it is that makes you special about what you do and what you're passionate about doing, then you're going to come to work today and every day after only focused on those things if you make that decision that those are the only things I'm going to focus on as soon as I can. Maybe you can't do that today, but what's something that's going to make tomorrow 10% easier? I think most people could afford 10, 15 hours a week of a virtual assistant taking just that.
Well, how
that
much does it cost?
So for me, I have a few different packages. The lowest tier for like someone like 10, 15 hours a week, it's going to cost somebody less than $800 a month.
Okay.
I think most business owners could afford $800 a month.
Yeah.
To have somebody that's on your team, that's like there with you. You can be on Zoom, you can be on Slack, constant communication, like all of that stuff is available at your fingertips.
Yeah.
You know, like I think a lot of people don't realize that we have all of these resources.
So now, once someone decides to work with you, and they go and get the 10, 15 hours or even 40 hours.
Yeah.
Then what happens afterwards? So your packages are between 10 to 15 hours, and then
up to like 40. Yeah.
Okay, and then so 800 to what?
So our top end is just under $2,000 a month.
So just under $2,000, and then what happens after? So now you got an entrepreneur who's like, hey man, I'm excited, let's do it. Mm-hmm. What happens after?
So okay, you're gonna have somebody that you have in mind already, right? I'm assuming that you're sitting down with me, you're having this conversation about, hey, I know that I'm holding myself back in my business. I'm the bottleneck. Mm-hmm. I need to get some help, right? We're gonna have that conversation, you and me, and determine who it is that you need. Me and my team then go out. We're very proud of how we scout and vet. I mean, we put people through the paces. I've run a digital marketing company before. I had a whole team that I hired virtually. I was the project manager. I know what it takes to find somebody. Mm-hmm. That was a big part of why I decided to do this, because I got good at it. And I had people on my team that I brought with me from that other company that are good at it. Mm-hmm. So we have a really tried and true process. From there, we basically help begin training the client, because I learned pretty quickly that people are excited about this idea of doing this, but a lot of times they don't know how to start. And once you get them to start, the next real challenge is getting them to have the consistency in management. Not all of us learn that. That's a really, really tough one, especially when it comes to delegation.
Yeah.
I read a study not too long ago. It was from Harvard Business School. And they said something like, even like, C-suite people with MBAs say that they haven't received enough like management and delegation training. So it's not just like if you're a newbie. Like a lot of us don't really learn these skills like we probably should. So that's a big part of what we do, is we're kind of there to help hold your hand and make sure that you are doing the kind of things that help keep a solidified team. Because it's not just about finding the right talent, it's also about keeping it.
Right, 100%.
So yeah, so then that kind of goes into like, we kind of hang around, like you're not just hiring somebody when you work with us, you're getting basically that person plus an HR team.
Gotcha.
So we're there to help facilitate things, make sure that, we're kind of that voice on behalf of the VA, because sometimes they have a little bit of difficulty, especially if you have kind of a cultural difference. Mm-hmm. In America, like we're pretty used to like having a drink with our boss after work, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't have that power distance relationship, whereas like, if it's like the Philippines, for example, that's an Asian culture. Like the hierarchy is a little different.
Yeah, there's a huge gap between leader, or what they say, boss, and employee.
Yeah, it's a power distance relationship.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're always aware of. And like sometimes you could be messing something up and not know it. They're not going to give you that feedback, but like feedback is a two-way street in a business. They're on your front lines. Like they've got to feel empowered to be able to actually communicate with you openly and honestly. So we're there to help kind of facilitate that.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I think how you show up as a leader. Like one of the tactics that I wouldn't call it a tactics, but one of the ways that I show up as a leader. Mm-hmm. I just had a meeting with someone who's been on my team for 3 months, and I haven't met him yet. Mm-hmm. So every 3 months we do a performance review. So It was his third month. Mm-hmm. So my company manager set up a performance review.
That's cool.
But the thing is, I haven't met the guy yet. So he's working with a client, working on a specific project, but I haven't met him. So I was asking him like his workload and asking him questions about his work. And I said, where can we improve how can I improve as a leader, and how can the company improve from your point of view? And one of the things he said to me was, Well, last week I expected to have this meeting, but I didn't have it. And I was just sitting there in a Zoom room waiting, and no one showed up.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I didn't know about this. And I shared it with him. Moving forward, this is what you can expect from me. And all he asked for was, additional communication and a channel of communication between me, because like you said,
Power distance.
Power distance?
Yeah, power distance.
So he just said, hey, can I hit you up if ever I need to hit you up? Because we have a company chat. I said, you can find me in the company chat and hit me up. Yeah, for sure. I just seen this grin on this dude's face.
Yeah.
He's like, what?
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think
that's awesome.
That way of communicating has allowed me to be more of an effective leader in certain circumstances. Yeah. So what is the number one way that you see, how you communicate or how you lead your team?
So I'm reading a great book right now. The title, let me get it out of doing Audible. I do a lot of driving, so I listen to these. But Patty McCord, she was the basically like chief executive of personnel at Netflix. She was there in like ground level, like very early days. Her name, the name of her book is called Powerful, Building a Culture of Freedom and Responsibility. Freedom and responsibility. So her whole idea is that people already have power. Like we use this word empowerment all the time. But like when people come in your door, like they have things that they're good at already. You just have to create an environment for them to excel, right? Part of that is listening. I think what you did was great, right? You had an open and honest, like very transparent interaction with this guy. You've never met this guy.
Yeah.
He didn't have the best experience to start off with, but you showed like, hey, I wasn't even aware of this, but this is what you can expect moving forward. And then you model that behavior. And that's something that she really emphasizes is like, having open, honest communication and transparency allows you to keep a much more flat hierarchy in your business, and it allows you to have that kind of bi-directional communication. One of the things, like as a matter of fact, tonight about 8 o'clock, me and my team, we do like a monthly, we call it a vibe check. So everybody comes in, everybody is welcome to attend, it's optional. Basically everybody in the company always shows up, and it's like, how are you doing really? Like we get caught up in the day-to-day, but like, how are you doing? Like what's going on in your life? Like, is there anything that you're struggling with? Like, what's the vibe? Like, let's do the vibe check. Yeah. So like,
you just inspired me to do that.
Oh, it's great. I love it. Yeah, it's really cool.
We did something like that in November or in December. And we did something like that. You got all my stuff ringing. We did something like that in November, December for the holidays. And I mean, it was a good experience because what I discovered in my company was that the video editors and graphic designers, those are part of the creative team, web developers, so forth. They don't necessarily communicate at all with the front end team, which is the client-facing team. So project managers, the sales team, they don't know anyone from the back end.
Right.
But when we had that meeting, it showed like, oh, this is our company. This is our. So from Andy's point of view as the owner, I see this department, I see this portion in payroll, I see this department,
Right.
But from their point of view, I realized that they didn't recognize that this how big our company actually was. So I think it's very important to do what you just said.
Yeah.
But I failed in it. As far as the last 3 months.
It could be hard because there can be a disconnect. Like you can be so focused on, looking ahead and trying to plan and strategize, and you're out there making those connections with your clients. You're like, if you're the CEO, you're the face, you're the sales guy, like you are everything that keeps your business alive in terms from a sales standpoint. So that rift can happen if you're not careful. So I mean, it was actually a member of my team that it wasn't me that started. It was my business partner. She was like, "Hey, I want to do this," and I was like, "Let's do it. Yeah, let's go for it." So
what's been the biggest challenge that you've experienced running a virtual team?
So getting people to commit to that transparency can be hard. I think a lot of people aren't used to it.
What do you mean transparency?
Just that type of communication, just being brutally honest about things, and as somebody that's in the position that we're in, we essentially have two clients on every deal. We have the virtual assistant, and we have our client here stateside that we're, rendering services for. So we're kind of the middleman, and one of those things that can happen is if you have a busy business owner, sometimes their communication is not going to be so great.
Yeah.
And then the same can go the other way. If you have a VA that's just, they're used to maybe being in a BPO where they're just stuck in a call center all day, they're a cog in the machine. No one really cares about what they think and
what
feel.
BPO is?
BPO is just basically like an outsourcing operation.
Business process outsourcing?
Yep. So like basically in the Philippines, that's pretty common. A lot of people are, either in call centers or some kind of a mill, essentially, where they're doing a lot of work. And
so it's like large organizations like Chase, Intuit will hire people. Chase Bank hires over there.
Yeah, PayPal. If
Yeah.
you call PayPal customer service, you're probably talking to somebody in Manila.
Yeah.
So it's pretty common. But what I've found is that a lot of these people aren't making the kind of money that you would expect a company like that to pay. And the workplace is just pretty toxic. It's not only like that corporate type of culture, but it's also just like it's rigid.
Yeah, very.
So I think it's been really like a rewarding thing. Like the challenge with overcoming the side effects of people that are coming out of that industry is that oftentimes you're dealing with somebody that they don't have the skills yet to really communicate on that level. You've got to kind of help coax them out of their shell to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Not with everybody. Sometimes it's more than with others, but I think it's just so cool. Like, I'm really proud of what I do because not only am I offering value for my clients, but like it's life-changing for the people that work with me. I make sure we pay them a much better rate than what they were making at those other places, and their voices are heard. Like you're not just going to get treated like a task robot. Like you're a living, breathing human being. We're there to advocate for you and make sure that you're being treated fairly.
Yeah, man, that's really impressive, man, what you've accomplished, what you've created in your business so far. What's been the biggest challenge client side?
So client side, I would say it's an education factor. I think you get a lot of people that they've hustled, they've grinded, they've gotten their business.
So is it more like solopreneurs?
Yeah, you get a lot of these solopreneurs or even people that have a pretty good sized small business, but you hit that ceiling and sometimes you realize, oh yeah, it's me. Like I'm the bottleneck. I have to farm more stuff out. But you get people that just don't want to let go, or they don't know how to let go. They don't know how to delegate effectively or communicate effectively. Mm-hmm. That can cause big problems where you have to be able to set expectations right away and say like, hey, we expect, just like we're expecting that transparency from the person that we're staffing with you.
Yeah,
it's only going to be as effective as your willingness to come to the table and be just as transparent. And that's a big challenge. We've learned that we have to do a lot more hand holding than we thought we would need to when we first started this business.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, a lot of my focus is always on good relationships and providing as much value as possible. We run a very lean team. We try to stay lean so that we can be reactive and able to provide value for the people that we work with. And so we've just kind of been learning as we grow that okay, we have to set better expectations. We have to do a lot more educational kind of outreach with our people that come on board, because we can't always expect them to know how to manage effectively.
Right. No, it makes 100% sense. And then when we look at once the client gets paired with the virtual assistant, mm-hmm. how does the client manage them afterwards? So if I were to come in as a client, how would I manage the virtual assistant afterwards? So
we do a big integration setup where the last stage of the education, because we're providing education the first 2-3 weeks that you're coming on board.
So you don't get the virtual assistant the first 2-3 weeks you're training?
We're in the process of scouting, vetting. We take our time with that to make sure we're finding really good people.
Okay.
During that 2-3 week span, we're working with you, to set those expectations and make sure you have an understanding of channels of communication that you sort of prefer or may already be using. We'll look at that and say, okay, well, there could be some challenges with that. We may need to set up, Slack, for example. A lot of people don't use it. Kind of surprising to me, but I think that's a must-have for when you have a virtual team. Just that ability to have constant communication.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you? How can I get you, Mr. Business Owner, to have that ability to have constant communication? So we establish communication separately with the VA and with the client, but then we also kind of help bridge that gap where we're like, okay, this is the expectation for both of you. You're both on this Zoom call right now. These are the tools that you're going to be using. This is the day-to-day expectation. Like, and then those first few weeks, we're just kind of hovering, to kind of make sure that training is being facilitated properly. We provide a lot of that. And then, from the client side, they're actually sticking to their guns in terms of, following through on all these systems that we're helping them to set up.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. So, I see that when you go virtual, it allows you to, you're here in my office, and my first business was everyone was in the United States. Everyone was under my leadership, but not just that. It was, a physical place that you have to go to.
Right, brick and mortar.
Brick and mortar. And I think that the biggest challenge or the biggest benefit of going virtual is it allows you to be mobile. So I just flew in from North Carolina, and no one on my team had to, besides my executive assistant, had to know. Business kept on running. Yeah. My meetings with clients were still on because of running the business virtual. I just unplugged this laptop, put it in my backpack, put this thing, the screen in my backpack, and then my iPad becomes a second screen, like how I use this. And I'm running my business on the airport or such. So what advice do you have for someone who is in a place of going from brick and mortar to running a business virtually?
So obviously your dynamics are going to be a little different if you have a brick and mortar, but there's always going to be somebody that can help facilitate things, that they don't have to physically show up. I think a lot of us kind of learned through the pandemic that a lot of jobs can be done remotely. Not all of them, not as many as I would hope, for a lot of people, but
you can keep going on.
For example, we have a guy that's got a brick and mortar here. We set him up with like a sales support person. So essentially he's got like 10 guys that are smiling and dialing in his like boiler room. And this person's job is basically to, they hit him up on Slack throughout the day like, hey, I need some more leads, or like, hey, I need you to reach out to this person or whatever. They're there helping to make sure, everything's getting input into the CRM. They're managing that. They're helping with follow-up. Like, once again, brick and mortar, people are, here physically, but you've got somebody that's just sort of there as a virtual presence that can bring value to that team and make them more effective.
So how can people get in touch with you if they want a virtual assistant or if they're interested? How can people get in touch with you?
Virtualassistantlink.com, all spelled out.
Virtualassistantlink.com.
Yep, you can go on there. You can book a consultation with me. Essentially, we'll sit down and figure out whether or not we're a fit. We're just going to basically take a look at what your day-to-day is, where your pressure points are in terms of what's holding you back with your task flow, and identify the things that you can, pass off. If you already have some stuff in mind, we'll look at what we can do for you. And then from there, it's just we go out, we find that person, and we help get you set up to be able to be successful by having someone to delegate to.
Right on. Virtualassistantlink.com. Adam, thank you so much for being on the show, brother.
Thanks so much, Andy. I really appreciate you having me on, man.
Right on.
Welcome to the Business Owner Spotlight by Audate Media. In this interview show, you will learn how to succeed through other people's stories, challenges that they overcame, and how they are winning in this new economy. You'll learn what to do in your business, what not to do in your business, and how others are succeeding. Tune in every week to discover new stories, new businesses, and new ideas.